Hello everyone. Today I am going to show you how to interact with the RPA challenge via Blue Prism. So the reason I'm creating this video is I saw certain videos on using Blue Prism for RPA challenge. They were using send keys, but that was not a reliable way. So I would like to show you a selector based approach, which is the most reliable way to interact with the RPA challenge website. Now, if you do not know what the RPA Challenge website is, go to rpachallenge.com and read the instructions on the left hand side. But just to give you a general idea, there is an Excel sheet over here. You download it, and this is how the Excel sheet looks like. It has got 10 records with certain fields, and using the RPA bot built in Blue Prism, we have to click on the start button over here and enter each of the fields in its respective text boxes. Now the challenge here is after every submit, the position of each of the fields change. Not only the position, but the selector of that particular field or UI element also changes. Let me explain to you what a selector means. For example, let's take phone number. If I right click on it and do an inspect element, it takes me to that particular element. Let me do a right click, copy element and paste it in a notepad so that you can see. Now there are going to be 10 rounds for each of those 10 records. So let's assume you are in round number 1. You fill the records and click on submit. Now if you see, the phone number position has changed. If you again right click and inspect, and if you copy the input element, which is the HTML tag for a text box, and paste it into your notepad, if you see that all other attributes are same except the ID and the name. Now if you are into RPA, you already know that whenever we have to uniquely identify a UI element using selectors, we generally give the ID or the name. So in this case, on every submit, the ID of that particular phone number text box is changing. So the developer won't know during development what is going to be the randomly generated ID of that particular text box, hence won't be able to uniquely identify the text box on the RPA challenge page. That way we have 10 fields and we have to uniquely identify each of these fields on every single submit. And that is what we are going to see how this is to be done using Blue Prism. Let's begin by creating a process. I'm just giving any random name. So we are not going to follow any best practices or standards because our main intention is to see how the RPA challenge works using Blue Prism using dynamic selectors. So I'll simply make use of actions to first interact with the Excel that we have. So we interact with the Excel VBO. We first create a instance, a handle. Then I do a copy paste of the Excel VBO. I do a open workbook. We already have the handle. The file name, I'm going to take it from the folder that I have. I do a Control Shift C to copy its path. I leave all the other fields. In the outputs, I click on this button over here to automatically generate the variable for the workbook name and click OK. So now we have these two variables, data items, and these two actions. Now we have opened the workbook. We need to read the records of that Excel into a collection. For that, again, I do a copy paste of this so that I get the Excel VBO ready-made in this drop down. And get worksheet as collection. Workbook name is the one that we already have. Worksheet name is sheet 1. I leave all the other inputs as it is. Outputs, I create a data item, a collection type. Click OK. Let's close the workbooks instance because we don't need it now. Close instance, and the handle that we had generated, we close it. We don't need to save the changes because we aren't making any changes inside the workbook. There are no output variables to be created. Click on OK, and let's link the stages and run the process and see how it goes. I'll change this to a faster debug speed, and I close the Excel sheet that is open on my machine and run the process. I can see the collection level data item having current values. If you can see, the scroll bar is over here. This is where I'm pointing. That means there are records inserted, but there are also empty rows. Now I scroll to the top and we can see those 10 records added. Now we need to remove these empty rows, and for that there is an action. After reading it from the Excel, this time we will need the collection VBO, not the Excel one. So I go to utility collection manipulation, search for remove empty rows, give the name of the collection which we already have, and the output should be in the same collection. And click on OK, link the stages and rerun the process. Reset, refresh, rerun the process. Let's see what happens. This time I can see rows 1 of 10 and not 99. So it has worked perfectly fine. You can see only 10 records, and now we are ready to read this collection and insert it onto our RPA challenge web page. Let's create a new object. We go to the action tab. Let me zoom it a bit. Let's rename this action to add records. So now, as I mentioned, we are not going to follow any standards or best practices. So directly we'll start interacting with the web page. So I have the RPA challenge web page open here. Now to interact with the elements of the web page, let's go to the application modeler, define a new application model, click next. It's a local application. It's a browser based application. Next, a browser which is already running. In our case, let's keep it running in the background so we don't have to close and reopen it all the time. Next, enter the title of the targeted page. If I see here, there is RPA challenge. Let's see if we need any wildcards. Should be good. Next, it has automatically picked Chrome, but we want Edge. So I navigate to Edge. I find out the path of Edge and paste it over here. Enter the URL of the start page. Let's take our RPA challenge URL. Leave all the other fields as it is and click on finish. Now we have the application modeler configured and we are now ready to create the element. Now right now my application modeler is not attached, so I click on attach over here. And now I add a child element, rename it as txt first name for the first name text box. Click on identify, go to the web page so that I can identify the first name text box. I do a control left click, go back to my application modeler, and I now have the attributes and values for the first name. Let's try to make it uniquely identifiable. We saw that the CSS selector, this is the ID, it keeps on changing. We don't need that. We don't need the URL. Let's see a few other things. We are going to make use of the, and since this is a text box type of HTML element, I'll change it to in. So now we have two attributes selected. Now this is the HTML of that particular text box, and it's going to keep changing. The position is not going to be the same for every single submit. So we are going to see how we can handle that dynamically. Let's add a new element, and this time for txt last name, identify the last name, control left click. Let's remove the existing ones and keep the same ones, which is for XPath, because that is what we are going to make use of, and the input HTML tag. Let's sort it so that it comes to the top, and here we are. Now we keep this as it is, and we are going to make changes to it. First, let me apply it and see what changes we are going to make. Now this we had done for label phone. Let me remove this, and since we have captured elements for first name and last name text box, so let's do the same for that too. Now we have first name, right click, inspect, right click on the input tag and copy the element. Likewise, let's do the same for last name, inspect, right click on input element and copy the element. So the reason for doing this is we can see that this particular attribute is changing from label first name to label last name. So that's the one we need. All others are dynamically changing, so we cannot make use of them. So let's target an input HTML element which has got ng reflect name as an attribute and having this as the value. So you have to write an XPath for this. You can take help of GPT if you do not know the syntax. Let me show you how. Copy this, go to the browser. You can make use of the browser's Copilot or ChatGPT. I'll make the use of the browser one. Now give me the XPath for the below input element using the ng reflect name attribute. So let me copy it and paste it so that you can see. Yeah, now just to give you a quick glimpse, XPath syntax. So how the nodes are selected, there are certain characters and expression that you need to write. For example, in our case, the Copilot has given us two forward slashes. So two forward slashes to select nodes in the document from the current node that match the selection no matter where they are. For example, slash slash books selects all book elements no matter where they are in the document. So let's make use of the one that Copilot has given us. So if this is for the first name, then obviously for the last name is you need to take the value of the attribute, paste it over here, and that's it. But let's first see if this particular XPath syntax works for uniquely identifying the text box or not. So I copy this, go to our application modeler, go to first name, sort, and this is where we are going to make use of that XPath. I paste it as it is, and I try to now highlight it to see whether it correctly highlights the first name text box or not. There it is. I can see a red mark over there. But we shouldn't be satisfied because we know that after every submit, the selector and the position changes. So let me click on submit. This time our first name is at the end. Now I keep this as it is and click on highlight, and you can see it has perfectly highlighted. Let's do it one more time to do a final confirmation. This time the first name is over here, and I click on highlight, and it has correctly identified the first. There we are. We have perfectly identified the text box using XPath and selectors. Now let's try this out for the last name also. We already have it written down over here. I copy it, change the XPath to the one that I have, click on highlight. There it is. It has highlighted the last name. Let me click on submit. Once again, highlight. There is the last name, and let me do it the third time. This time it's here, highlight, and there it is. Perfect. Now we are going to do the same thing for every single element. Now I have gone ahead and created the elements for all these 7 fields, and here they are. They have done they have been done in the similar manner. That is the XPath followed by the input HTML element. Now let's go ahead and use the Blue Prism Studio to interact with these elements. So the first thing we do is to check whether our application is connected or not. We do that using the read stage. Take the root level element, use is connected, store in the flag. I don't want such a long name. I'll use is connected. Okay. I'll use a decision to check whether the value that we have is expected or not. I can see this name of the data item is still the previous one. So let me go here, copy this and give it the new name. Okay, in the decision stage, we are going to check whether this value is a true or false, whether it's connected or not. So we use the flag variable and check against the Boolean value of true. Click OK. If it is true, we should move forward. If it is not true, we should go ahead and connect it. So let's take the yes and no branches and point it accordingly. So if it's not connected, then we need to use a navigate stage and again take the root level element and attach to it. Let's take the window title that we took earlier as RPA challenge. Click OK. On the other hand, if it's a yes, it should continue, and this time we want to read the Excel records, but we still do not have that Excel records in the object, and we are going to pass it from the process. So we have to accept the incoming collection from the process to the object from the start stage. So we do that by adding an input variable. I click on add over here, and let's give it some name as in collection. Data type would be a collection. Click on this button to create the data item and so on. So we have this in collection over here. Now we need a loop to loop through these records, and obviously we are going to loop through in collection. Okay. Once we are inside the collection, Okay, let's point these fields. Start, read, go to the decision, check whether the connection is established or not. Let's see if this is a yes branch, this is a no branch, but if the decision is no, then we need to navigate. So I just right click on it and do a switch, and now only if it is a no, it will go and navigate and attach to it. I take an anchor stage over here so that it looks neat and clean, and now we have the stages as needed. We reiterate, we have an incoming collection from the process. We are going to still pass it from the process. We'll do that after we finish the object. So we have this in collection, then we are reading whether the connection is established with the application or not using the is connected data item. If it is already established, then straight away go to the start of loop. If it is not, then go to the navigate stage and attach it, and then come back to the loop stage again. Now inside the loop, we need to write each of those Excel records onto the RPA challenge web page. For that, we use the write stage. Now on the right hand side, we have the text box elements that we had used. So let's start by first name. I drag it under the element section. Now what value do we need to give? Now what value do we need to read? We need to use the in collection, and inside the collection we will be having the same columns just like the Excel. So what's the column name for first name? It's first space name. Let's go and give it using the dot operator. Click on OK. We are good with this one. Likewise, we do the same for all other fields. So I click on add again, this time txt last name. Now if you can see here, there is a space. If I click at the right hand side of the entire string, I can see a space. So either you can trim the spaces and use it in your bot, or for now I'll delete it from here and check whether there are any spaces at the beginning. No, they are not. So I copy this, paste it over the collection, paste it as a collection column header, dot, click OK. Now do the same for rest of the fields. Now I went ahead and did the same for all the other fields, that is the collection name dot the column name, and whichever UI element is there respectively, I have added that into the elements column. I click on OK. This is the right stage. Now after writing, what we need to do is, let's go to the RPA challenge page. We need to click on this submit button so that it goes on to the next page, the next round. There are going to be 10 rounds. So let's capture the element for the submit button. Element, let's give btn as a prefix. Submit, identify. It's the Win32 mode at the top. Let me press Alt so that it goes to browser mode. There it is. Now I hover my mouse on submit and do a control left click. Let's see what it has given. Here is the button submit. Sorted by match. I don't want the URL, not the CSS. I will use the web value, maybe even the text, because both of them say submit, and input type is also submit. Let's do a right click and do an inspect element. Now this is the real skill of an RPA developer, to uniquely identify the elements. So I can see type submit, value submit, and input is the element. So let me take web element type as input, and I can either keep it or remove this one, but let me sort it back so that we know which ones we have selected. And just for confirmation, let me just highlight. Yeah, I can see the submit button is highlighted using the red border. I click on apply, OK, and it's time to click the submit button. We do that using the navigate stage. The element we want is the button. Let me expand this a bit so that we see the actions. I can see click. That should be good enough. So let me use click and OK. Let me link the stages. You can give a user-friendly name to each of these stages, like click submit button, write records, and so on. So we are connected. We'll click on save, and we need to publish the process also. I'm sorry, publish the object. Right click, publish, and you see this logo indicating that it is published. Now let's call this from the process. Only after publishing you will be able to see it over here. Let's do a reset refresh. We are going to add it over here at the end, so I'll delete this, take an action stage. Let's see if our object shows up in the list. Add RPA challenge records. Yes, it shows up, and add records is the only action that we have created. Input collection is the one that we added so that it can be passed from the process. So the collection in question is the data. Click OK. So we are passing the collection from the process to the object, and link the stages. And now we are ready to run the process. Let's go to the RPA challenge page and bring it to a good, let's do just a normal refresh. Yeah, let's see how it goes. Click on start, bring the focus onto the RPA challenge web page. There it is. I can see the records being quickly added, and clicking the submit button. You can see on the bottom left corner it shows round 9, and now it's round 10, and it will show you a congratulations and a success message only if all the 7 out of 7 fields, that is 10 rounds, 10 into 7, 70, if all of them are correctly added with the correct values from this Excel, only then it will give you this success message. And you can see it has done it in 8 seconds. Now obviously you can fine tune this process to make it more faster, but 8 seconds is quite a good time. And you have done this using a reliable approach, that is using XPath and finding the selectors and then identifying the UI elements of the RPI challenge web page. Now you can try this out. Thank you.